Hello and welcome to New Consciousness Activation. We welcome Shamir today. Shamir, you're a speaker and a transformational coach. So it's a pleasure to have you here today. You also, I should add, you work with people's hearts, and that should grab people's attention. So I'll let you kind of explain it a little bit, what I mean by that. How do you work with
Well,
people's hearts?
thank you, Natalie, and thank you, everyone there. It's an honor and a privilege to be here and to connect with all of you. Natalie, when you say I work with the heart, absolutely. I actually work with my own heart first and connect my own heart to my brain, and that's been my journey. My journey has been throughout my life. I've always given my power away. You know, when my heart says something, and I think I've got that connection, somebody else says, no, you should do this and you should do that, and we often defer our own innate understanding to others' views and others' opinions of what we should be doing, and we're always seeking answers from outside of us.
Mhm.
And you would think that a person like that would never get ahead in life, but through the grace of the creative forces, I became a vice president at NMAX, at one of these multi-million dollar utilities here. And even then, I was giving my power away, and I had no idea I was doing that. It was always my heart was saying, this is the direction we need to go. And others would say, no, we got to go this way. And I would always say to myself, maybe they know more about this than I do. And it would then turn out that months later that it would have been my direction was more wise at that time.
Mhm.
So when I began to realize that I was always giving my power away, that began my journey and exploration. So I parted ways with that company, and I ended up focusing on what is my next level of what do I need to do to build this, because I find myself giving my power away lots. And I found this amazing company called HeartMath. And they've been around for 20 years, and because I'm an engineer, I connected with them right away because they are scientists, and
Mhm.
they have all these publications that are actually published in peer-reviewed journals, and so these are vetted by other science folks. So when I found them, I realized that there's an actual science behind connecting your heart with your brain, and then finding more solutions that is appropriate for you in this path that you're on. So really, when I work with the heart, it's because I've been there where I've given it away and I haven't listened to my heart. And this journey has brought me right back to now I know how to connect with my heart. And when I do that, magic happens. You know, a few years back, I was merely a fan. When you talked about Cryon, I was merely a fan of Lee Carroll and all his work. I was sitting in the audience. Lee did not know my name. And I put the intention out there that I want to work with this man because he's such a wonderful person. This is such a wonderful energy to be working with. And when I started putting my heart and my mind together, I organically moved in an area where I was introduced to Lee, and Lee actually invited me to do workshops with him. This is the law of attraction coming into full force when you actually connect your heart with your mind. And that's why I work with people's hearts, because I know that that is the magic, that is the elixir, that is what will trigger you, and move you forward to your path. And my motto has always been ignite from inside out, because that's how things happen. That is my explanation of working with the heart, Natalie.
Thank you. So I definitely want to get back to that in just a minute, but first I want to ask you. So you mentioned that you're an engineer. I have seen a few, not too many, but a few people who began with an engineering background and then moved into coaching, spirituality. Technically or traditionally we'll look at those areas as on the opposite spectrum, right? It's the techies versus the humanitarians. But there begins to be the shift where that begins to connect. I'm just wondering, behind the scenes, what was how did you begin to see those connections that you said that's the connection that moved you to the heart, that you were giving your heart away, but what was really happening behind that, that just made that huge shift?
Yes, well, engineers are engineers because they want to learn how things work.
Right.
They're really interested in knowing, when I put these two pieces together, will it stand? And if it falls, what are the forces in action that make it fall? And
Mhm.
engineers find out very quickly, just like any physician or doctors or scientists, that there's a limited understanding. We have a limited perspective of physical
Mhm.
things in life. And really, when we become engineers or scientists, we're actually looking for God. We're actually looking for that creative force. And we don't know that. We don't know that because all we know is I want to do something with things and I want to build things. But what we're trying to do is we want to honor the creative forces, and we
Mhm.
want to use the creative forces. Then we want to use nature to further enhance and promote humanity. And when you actually have that innate in you, you decide, because all you see is on the menu. As when we're growing up, we see you can be a doctor, engineer, lawyer, and so we have to say, this is so much I want to do, I can only fit in into these boxes. And what I teach people is that that's great, but your real self will emerge. Your real self, your real engineer, the inner engineer will emerge from you, and you will find a different expression of that innate wanting to find out more about nature. And that's what happens with people who you think are on a different path. Because when we think about engineers or doctors or scientists, we think about people who say we don't believe in anything that is unseen and unmeasured.
Right.
And that's a good place to start with. That's a good place to start with, and say, I want to wipe out everything everybody's told me. I want to
Mhm.
create my own understanding based on my own observations. It's a perfect place to start with. But many people get stuck there. They get stuck there and they say, no, this is my understanding, and everything's going to be seen from that lens. And what I help people do, and that's where the connection between heart and mind comes in, you really find out what you are all about. You really find out you want to find out more about this nature. And then you become to realize that the instruments you're using to actually assess nature is limited. And HeartMath is another organization that really opened up my eyes. When I saw some of the research they're doing, for example, one of the things that we've known, like as a scientific community and as people have known, that the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Now,
Mhm.
now the other piece of information that these guys have actually measured is that the heart actually has a magnetic field that you can measure that is about 3 feet beyond you. So you're in a bubble of a magnetic field. Now,
Mhm.
other laboratories have measured this to be at 8 feet. And most of these people say that it's a real multidimensional field. So now, when you talk about that and you begin to understand that your heart is just a lot more than the pump, because
Mhm.
that's where physicians and that's where engineers will go. They'll say, what's a pump and what does it do? It sends blood here and maintains your blood pressure. But then when you see that there's a magnetic field, and then you realize and you connect that magnetic field, because you can measure it, to the
Mhm.
magnetic field on the earth. And then you realize that, the sun's magnetic field, whenever we have solar flares or sunspots, that affects the earth's magnetic field. It affects us. And guess what? My body has iron in it. So how does iron work with magnetic fields? Well, no wonder I'm
Mhm.
feeling the shifts and ebbs and flows of Gaia. And all of a sudden, the engineer and the physicians and the scientists, if they are going to abandon their original, everything's got to be measured, and the world looks like this, if they allow themselves to abandon that and start with a new fresh slate and saying, now these observations, let's invite them in and form a bigger picture. I was wrong about this, I'm now here.
Mhm.
And that's really the journey of an engineer, journey of people who are on the left brain side of science, who actually come to a realization that this is really important, that there are things that are unseen, things that are not known, and you can't necessarily measure them. Then you become introspective, and then the answers are revealed from you because you are asking for that answer.
Right. You said something that I think is critically important, and I think our viewers might have just kind of missed it. So I want to bring our focus back to that. You said the heart sends more information to the brain than the brain to the heart.
Correct.
And that has huge implications. So can you go more into that? What does that really mean in lay language?
Well, it means that if you allow your heart to actually settle itself into a natural rhythm, okay, what's happening is that this is your body sends more information to the brain than the brain sends information to the body. That is through the vagus nerve systems, which are like fiber optic cables. You can liken them to that.
Mhm.
They go from the body. Well, most of their information going from the body to the brain comes from the heart. And so
Mhm.
what happens is the brain takes signals from the heart as to what to do next. Now, we always think about our brains have to function, our brains are where we are very smart, but our brains are also where we can be very less intelligent. And when the heart is not properly communicating with the brain, what the brain kind of takes that skew as interference. And that interference, if it's not properly communicating, becomes a stress response. So what happens is if your heart and your brain are not, there's no rhythm between it, and the rhythm is very simple, and we'll go through that demonstration. But if there's no gentle rhythm within it, between the heart and the brain, what happens is the brain kind of takes that as a stress response and short circuits your long-term thinking process, short circuits that area of your brain that actually is very intelligent, and it bypasses it and brings and allows and basically entices you to be reactive, because stress response is when you are in danger and the body says, if we're in danger, we must respond quickly, we don't have time to calculate. So
Mhm.
the idea about this heart sending information to the brain is that there's a volume of information that is actually pushed to the brain. And if that volume, the quality of that volume of information then allows your brain to then guide and trigger the right hormones in your body, the right enzymes to actually direct things. So the brain is a center where it directs things. The heart gives it the general direction. And what kind of direction do you want the heart to give to the brain? You want the heart to say to the brain, I want you to reverse the aging process. I want you to heal the disease cells. I want you to, allow my body to absorb nutrients in a most efficient way. I want you to give me more energy. I want you to keep me happy.
Mhm.
Anything that is interrupting that kind of message from your heart to your brain uh, goes against that. And that's why people are depressed, they're sad, they have a lot of anxiety. And you can shift out of those conditions very quickly. I've seen it happen within 7 days. 7 days.
Mhm.
So the heart sending information to the brain, it's very important for us to actually allow ourselves to allow the heart to do its job and allow the heart to actually give the orders to the brain, because that's important.
So we'll definitely come back to kind of what it can do, and talk about what's possible when we bring them in balance. But I want to talk about the implications that it has for us as human beings as we're changing. Our conversation here is about new consciousness activation, right? So we have begun to go through this new energy. And so I think it has really tremendous implications. I think this change, this shift from brain to heart is, I believe, at the real one of the biggest things that humanity is experiencing on this planet.
Yes.
Because, as you said, we have grown up. I mean, it goes to our gender identification, gender roles, right?
Yeah.
We have grown up with the idea that it's the logical brain. It's the brain that is in charge. That tells us who we are, what to do, how to behave. Um, we think about men as being more logical, being more in control, right? The heart is typically associated with sort of a feminine of women, right? And if we were to tell people, well, you have to lead from the heart, in especially maybe in a corporate environment, that would be dismissed as being weak, um, not really rational, all kinds of negative things that you can attribute to that. And so now I think it can make the biggest waves in just people's understanding about how they think about it. So can you talk about sort of how that
Yes.
all reconnects?
Absolutely. I am from the corporate world. I spent
Mhm.
decades, and I mentioned that I was a vice president there. One of the things I found out is that when we actually show compassion, it can be perceived as weakness. I was actually told one day when I rewarded somebody, a small little gift for doing their job, and I was doing that lots. I was rewarding, patting people on the back. The conventional wisdom there was, well, if you do that, you'll soften them and they won't be able to move forward.
Right.
But actually, the very opposite happened. And this is what my mission is. This is what my passion is, to share this with people. I had a very loyal team. We had very little attrition. We had each other's backs. Actually, our human resources director actually told me that I had one of the highest performing teams, and all these people were happy. Now if you look at some of the research that's coming out for corporations, if you read Harvard Business Review, for example, look at some of their articles, Huffington Post, you will see there's a shift. There's a real shift in that corporate world where they're now looking at, compassion is strength, a kind of a philosophy. They're now
Mhm.
looking at, basically, they're not saying lead with the heart. What they're saying is that make sure your employees are happy, make sure they're content, make sure, because millennials, God bless their hearts. I supervise millennials. Millennials do not see a job as my generation did.
Mhm.
You must go to work hard, and then retire there. Millennials see the job as a means to an end, a means to actually enjoy life and actually take some time off, connect with nature, meditate. They are amazing. Like, I love them, and these millennials are going to shape our future. I'm not at all worried about people staying in their heads and saying this is the corporate world. The
Mhm.
corporate world is shifting. I'm seeing it shift, and I'm there for the corporate world to help shift. And I've got programs coming up in the future to help
Mhm.
move that along. But going back to your heart being a woman, and brain being male, interactions, one of the things that is very important to note, that our brain has two hemispheres. You've got the creative side and the logical side. Our heart is actually at the center of our body, and if you do expect, or sorry, if you are a subscriber to that ideas of the chakras in your body, you have 7 chakras. Well, you know that the heart divides the upper
Correct.
chakras from the lower chakras. So the heart has a balance to it, a chakra balance to it, and the brain has a balance to it, because there's two hemispheres. The two hemispheres, one is feminine and one is masculine. And so I think what you're getting to is that a lot of us, brought up in the corporate world, have actually shut off that creative hemisphere
Right.
and have focused on one side. And the same thing with our heart. When we shut our heart off to receive, uh, and when we shut our heart off to give, the receiving is a male energy, and the giving is a female energy. The idea is not that we're more in the heart or more in the brain, but we're not balanced in the heart. We're not
Right.
balanced in the brain. And so what we need to do is send this message out to people, saying, it's not about being in the heart or being in the brain. It's about balancing the heart, balancing the brain. And this connection that you made, Natalie, beautiful connection between the heart and the brain, and that's the topic you want to really emphasize today, is that connection becomes a balancing connection. It actually balances a human. Every human being has a divine and a masculine self. Let me give you an example from a physiological perspective, from a biological perspective. Every human being has an autonomic nervous system. An autonomic nervous system has two parts to it, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Basically, what it is the sympathetic is really the gas pedal. If you are stressed out, it's the sympathetic response in your body that takes over. And basically, what that does is it kind of revs your engine high. You get more stress hormones pumped in. Your body is alert and active. When you have a parasympathetic response, you're putting the brakes on a bit. You're saying putting your foot off the gas, putting the brakes on, and slowing down. And that's basically, let's repair and rejuvenate. Let's allow the digestion process to happen. So what's
Mhm.
happening in our bodies right now when we do this breathing technique, and we'll get to this, which I'll
Mhm.
demonstrate, is that you are taking the sympathetic and the parasympathetic systems. Now remember, I said balance in the body, balance in the brain, balance in the heart. Well, when I talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic, you can see the male and female energies of that. The sympathetic is go, 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 go. That's a male energy. The parasympathetic, slow down, female energy. So when you take a deep breath, your sympathetic response goes up. And when you exhale, your parasympathetic response goes up. So if you're breathing in and out on a daily basis, you are actually activating both male and female energies in your body. And so if you make those breaths symmetrical, for example, if you count 5 breaths in, 5 breaths out, that symmetry causes that balance in your system. And that's only from the biological perspective. Remember I mentioned about the magnetic field that emanates from you in a bubble. Well, that balance actually shows up in that, it registers in the magnetic field that is palpable and measurable. And the emotions you feel are actually registered on that. We have measured those. You can see the frequency spectrum on the magnetic field bubble of your heart. Now, if I say to you a heart's magnetic field reaches out at least to 3 feet, if not beyond, the brain's magnetic field only 1.5 inches. That's where the brain is, the heart is really the captain in your body, and it really helps you balance. So when you use the power of your heart, it's not using the feminine of energies of your body. It's actually using the balancing nature of your body, and it balances you, and it begins to repair and rejuvenate. And that's the biological and the physiological perspective of that male female energy in your body.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And I think the balancing is really the shift that we're going through. We have been quite unbalanced before. And what I'm, kind of hearing the comments that people might be having as they're listening, especially our male viewers, that there are many people that are still, that have been born in the old energy. They're still uncomfortable with the implications of this, or they're uncomfortable. I know of people, and I've had really personal stories where people in my family even were told, if you don't open your heart, you're going to have a really hard time moving forward. Because if you're completely living in your head, you will just find it difficult to operate in life. And people had kind of gained medical conditions, health conditions, because they didn't change. Now, it's not to say that, everybody's going to get sick if you don't do that, but it's becoming a real, that's becoming a reality. We are shifting towards that balance. And I'm wondering if you, it's an honor to have a man here, because we don't get too many men on, in these conversations. Right now, it's the women that are really leading these conversations. And I wonder if you can speak to the men about your personal experience with the balance in this modern world where, we're expected to be unbalanced.
Yes, and again, to the men, if men are brought up like I was, in my generation, where we were brought up to be the people, and this is something that we've learned. It's not what we do. When I was young, I would run around and hug people, and of course, I was, to adults in my life were telling me that's not appropriate for a man. Showing affection was,
Right.
but then that was something that they learned. And that was something that they learned. And so what we are doing now, and you mentioned the new age, and there is a real shift. And, we can go into this a bit. I'll touch upon it, but really it's a lot more in-depth explanation. But the real shift is where the energies are shifting around us in the cosmos. We're in this new space. The Earth orbits around the sun, every year. But the sun and the solar system actually orbit and move through the galaxy and orbit around the center of the galaxy once in every 250 million years. Okay, so now humanity has been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and Earth has been around for millions of years. But we still haven't been around for 250 million years, which means that the space that we're traveling in now, humanity has never been in when we talk about it with respect to the galaxy. And the energies that we're seeing now, because we've passed that December 21st, 2012 mark, and there are, if you listen to Lee Carroll and the Cryon Group, they'll tell you that there was a protective bubble around the solar system, and that protective bubble is not there, and we are actually bombarded with a lot more rays that are different. And when you look at that kind of bombardment, they're really there to help us restore the balance. Really help, the ancients, the natives have had, aborigines had predicted the meeting of the condor,
The
coming from
eagle
the
and the
south
condor.
and
Hmm.
yes, the eagle and the condor from the south to the north, and all that was the heart and the mind connecting. And that was, if we went through the December 21st portal, which we did without destroying each other,
Right.
and that's been in Sanskrit, and that's been the Mayans who've been talked about it. So it's ancient wisdom that says that we have this 5,000-year rotation of an age, where we passed through December 21st, 2012, without destroying ourselves, which means our signal to the creative forces in the universe is we are here. And
Hmm.
therefore the new energies that are coming, they're actually helping us restore the balance. So really, one of my favorite things that I don't know if people are familiar with Stargate experience, folks. Pragit Harris, I'm sure you are, Natalie.
Yeah.
One of the things that Pragit will always say, and God bless his heart, and through his channeling, he says, there is nothing to do. When you are actually experiencing this benevolent energy coming to you, it is just your experience. There's nothing to do. And what we have found out through my working with him is that the HeartMath system, the system that I teach, the heart coherence building system, actually opens you up to receive, and breaks through the barriers of that fear. Going back to the men, our fear is if we show affection, and this is the survival instinct, it's ingrained. If you're a man and watching this, pay attention to this actually. Think about why you're not having that affection in your heart. Is that if we open up our affection, what will end up happening is that we will show emotion, and then we will hear our parents, our grandparents, and all the important adults in our lives say to us, that is being weak, and you will be perceived as weak, and no one will take you seriously. That is what's driving us closing in our heart. And I
Hmm.
can tell you right now, through my experience, that when you show compassion, you are going to create an amazing, amazing experience for those connecting with you, and they will want to connect with you. And I've had people come and tell me, because I've been doing this practice a while, that these things, the energies I feel I feel that's my new normal anyways, and nothing's different. But people come and tell me, I don't know why, but I just want to hang around you. You don't have to say anything, but just that. And men, isn't that important for you to be able to actually draw people to you, and to actually have them see as you helping them? And I think it's very important for us all to realize, and especially men, that we need to restore balance. Showing compassion and emotion is not weakness, it is an absolute strength. And you will create your reality the way you want it, the way you desire it. But when you shut your one part of your heart off, you're actually shutting off the opportunities that come to you. And you see some male scientists at HeartMath, and they've been practicing this, and if you see them speak, you can just feel that amazing energy coming from them. And that's really what I ask the male folks who are listening to this to really heed, and connect with your heart. And when we do this practice, Natalie, perhaps they can take the three-step practice, and then they can use that and practice it for 15 minutes a day.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, why don't we do a demonstration? I don't know if you wanted to do, maybe break it up and do a little bit now, and then we'll do something else later, or you want to do the whole thing now, and then we'll talk about kind of what are the benefits and why do that.
Okay, so why don't we do a very basic one, the one that's a foundational one right now, and we'll
Okay,
talk some more, and then we'll do the other one later. Yeah.
sounds perfect. Yep.
So I'm going to take you through a quick a heart coherence building technique now. So the first thing we want to do is just place your awareness in the area of your heart, and now take slow, deep breaths and visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Now remember, as you're breathing, I will be talking through this. So just take the slow, deep breaths and just visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. And as I speak, continue to have this rhythm in you. Keep these breaths symmetrical. Okay, if you're going to count to 5 as you breathe in, count to 5 when you breathe out. And as you take these slow, deep breaths, understand that what your body is doing right now is it's actually balancing itself. And the balance comes from the fact that as you breathe in, your sympathetic system goes up, activates. And when you breathe out, your parasympathetic system begins to activate. And as you breathe in, your sympathetic comes up, and so on. So you've got this nice little energetic wave happening in your body as you take these slow, deep, gentle breaths. And that is what's going to restore your body. That is what's going to happen when you balance your body, is start with the slow, deep breaths. And visualize these flowing in and out of your heart, and just ride this wave that you're feeling. And if you feel a wave that's palpable, you don't necessarily have to do it and feel it. I can show you the studies, offline perhaps, that show you that you're actually sending magnetic field waves out there. But some of us can feel it. If you can feel these waves, know that this is a new registration on your magnetic field bubble around you, and it's going to draw others to you of like mind. So you will attract like things when you're taking these slow, deep, gentle breaths, and just visualize them flowing in and out of your heart. And if you do just this for 15 minutes a day, and I do it when I wake up and I hit the snooze button, this is my go-to practice. Slow, deep breaths in and out. Because, I tell people this in my workshops all the time, Natalie. I say to them, okay, how many of you breathe? And of course, all the hands go up. How many of you feel emotions? And of course, all the hands go up. And I say, why don't you choose the way you breathe? Why don't you choose your emotions? And there's no excuse for not doing this technique, because you can do this anywhere, anytime, because you're always breathing and you're always experiencing emotions.
Beautiful, thank you. So let's talk about this heart-mind coherence or heart-brain coherence. What does that mean? I mean, we kind of mentioned it's a balance, but what does the coherence mean? And then we'll go to why.
Well, the coherence actually means that your hormone system, your nervous system are all working, and your emotional systems are all working in lock sync. It's almost like if you have a team of rowers and synchronized rowing or synchronized swimming. If you have synchronized rowing, for example, everybody's just paddling at the same frequency, so that your boat is not veering off somewhere.
Right.
It's in lock sync. When you are not when you are out of coherence, when we talk about coherence, we can't not but talk about being out of coherence. When you're out of coherence, everybody's paddling at a different frequency, which means that your boat is going this way and that way. So from an external perspective, what coherence looks like and feels like is what you just went through, the experience of slow breathing through the heart. And what not being in coherence looks like stress. So like this irregular breathing, which means that you've got sympathetic, parasympathetic, and it's all kind of jerky movement. It's almost like you're driving a car with a gas pedal, foot on your gas pedal and foot on your brake pedal, and that's how you're driving your car. So being in coherence has this sense of everything's balanced, everything's working, and you build resilience, which means you build the capacity to actually endure more stress relatively to somebody else, because somebody else will see you kind of navigate in a stressful situation. When you're doing this technique, you won't even feel it's stressful, but the other person beside you will say, oh my God, how do you handle that? I'll give you an example. I was recently asked to do and I use my creative side as well. I've actually purposely gone into acting. I love acting. I love theater acting, and I do that, and I find myself becoming more creative as you would normally. One day I was asked to become an assistant stage manager for a production here in the city. And when I did that, there were a lot of things going wrong in terms of having the right props. The people would not show up for rehearsals, and we had a stage manager who was quite stressed out about things. And I was doing my stuff, on the day when we were moving into the theater, a important piece of furniture broke, and there was a lot of stress around it. I just moved with it. I didn't even feel stressed out. And the director came to me and says, I have no idea how you can manage this so professionally. And I looked at him, and I didn't even know I was in stress. So one of the benefits of doing this technique is that you will build that resilience capacity. You won't even know that you're stressful, and others will tell you there's something shifted. So the idea here is to build that resiliency in your body by doing this nice little sympathetic parasympathetic dance when you take
Mhm.
the slow, deep breaths. Mhm.
And stress is one of the main things I think we're dealing with. Everybody is dealing with on a daily basis. It affects our health, it affects our productivity, it just affects us on all levels. And many people, when they ask for help, for whatever help it is, whether it's therapy, coaching, they really want to find a way to deal with stress in their life. And this is really something that
Yes.
is so easy
You
and so
know,
doable, and
absolutely.
something that everybody can do.
You can shift out of stress within a minute. Like your body, when you're first seeing signs of stress, what your body will do is it'll send a shot of adrenaline, and that's a
Mhm.
slow acting stress hormone. But if that stress persists, then cortisol, you get a higher level of cortisol hormone in your body, which is a stress hormone. And when that happens, cortisol is a slower acting hormone. But what it means is that if you've got a lot of cortisol in your body, basically cortisol, uh, it, it has a half-life of about 10 or 12 hours, which means if you've got a flood of cortisol in your body at noon, only half of that will dissipate by midnight. And so if you're having trouble sleeping, it's likely that you've had stressful day and that there's a lot of cortisol in your body. It's like having a coffee before you go to bed, you know. Blah. So the idea about this, and the benefits of actually alleviating stress, a lot of people don't understand or don't really appreciate how quickly you can resolve stress. There was a study done by HeartMath folks, and it's a famous study that all HeartMath trainers like me display. It's of a police officer in a simulation exercise. And this was done in the Bay Area, and they had about 400 people. They had shut down the entire Air Force Base, and were doing all these exercises. And in several of these cases, they had these heart rate monitors put on, and they monitored how stressful it gets for police officers and how quickly their stress goes down. What they found out is through these exercises that when the police officer encounters a simulated danger, where they've got actors playing, people who are, obviously a threat, and this is all a simulation, they found out that the rate goes up, and then it stays up for hours. And remember
Mhm.
earlier on, I said you become less intelligent when you are under stress. Well, imagine a police officer with a gun not being intelligent and being very reactive, right? So
Not a good combination.
not a good combination. And if they don't learn how to resolve that stress quickly in their body, they will stay reactive. And so
Mhm.
what they found out is a lot of these police officers, and this is no different than in a corporate world or at a personal level, that their stress levels go up even after the situation has dissipated. So imagine yourself just having an argument with somebody, and then when that argument's done, the stress is still there in your body, and the cortisol levels are being pumped up, and you'll have trouble sleeping because you're always recalling these things, right?
Right. Yeah.
Heck, I know people who have recalled the situations years after, looking back at it and sending stress to their bodies. So
Mhm.
in one example that I share with people in my workshops is that this police officer actually used a heart coherence technique that it was what we just went through here a
Mhm.
few minutes ago is really the basic foundation of it. Then you apply a more advanced
Yeah.
technique to it. We'll kick it up a notch before we sign off. But when
Yep.
they applied this advanced technique, their stress levels, their heart rhythm stress levels, went back to their base levels within a minute, which
Mhm.
means that this person is ready for the next assignment and this person will be intelligent. In one of my workshops, I took this advanced technique and I did it with people. I did it for 5 minutes. And when I did it for 5 minutes, one person actually said, you know what? There was a clock on the wall, an analog clock that was going tick, tick. It was loud. It was pretty loud, actually. She said before the exercise, it was going tick, 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 tick. But when I actually started doing the slow down breathing, it was it actually slowed down for her. And I said that to her. I said, look, you didn't slow time down because we were here on the same clock. What you did was you slowed your body down, which
Mhm.
means that you had more time to think between the seconds. And so this was a very revealing kind of situation for me and others, is because when you actually slow your body down, you have a lot more time to think and process. And the other person who you're talking to will not even know that there's a gap in your thinking process. And so these are the benefits, and people need to know that they can bring their heart rhythms back down, their heart stress. Uh, Let me go back there. People should know that they can bring their stress levels down within a minute by practicing this coherence building technique. And when they do that, the benefits are immense. For example, your immune system, if you do this practice, they've shown that the immune system has actually increased by up to 6 hours. So for 6 hours, you'll have a boosted immune system. Whereas if you have a stressful event and you stay in that stressful mode, your immune system is actually suppressed for up to 6 hours. And so think of the last time you caught a cold, or you really had to put yourself into bed because you can't go to work or call in sick for a stressful condition. It's
Mhm.
exactly when you've had a stressful event, and then your body says, okay, I mean, you had a stressful event, the body says, I don't want to send any energy to the immune system because the immune system is there to protect you, but you've got an immediate threat. What I do want to do is I want to increase the amount of sugar in your body. I want
Mhm.
to now put more blood to your legs and your arms and less to your brain, and I want you to be reactive. That's what stress does. And so anything that does with digestion in your body, anything that's like a repair and maintenance function in your body, including keeping your immune systems up, are all channeled away in terms of the energy to areas that you require when you're really stressed out. So being stressed out when there's no tiger in front of you is not a good policy, and you have a choice. You can actually breathe your way out of stress.
Wonderful. So one of the things that I love is the example of the metronomes, not the example, but the demonstration of the metronomes, right? Because it really demonstrates that coherence that's created. And so the metronomes, and I think people can find it, I think it's on YouTube. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it's the demonstration where they line up many metronomes. It's those ticking things that keep the beat or the
Yes,
rhythm,
yes,
and they are all at first they're completely out of sync. They're just ticking at their own pace.
yes,
Within a minute or 2 minutes, you watch them, they start to align, they start to become coherent until there's only one left that's out of sync and everybody's watching it. And at the end, they are all completely synchronized without anybody touching them, without
yeah,
anybody doing anything. So I think it demonstrates that when you were talking about that energy field around us and how we impact other people with our energy field. And I think so it shows us that with our coherence, when we bring ourselves into coherence, we begin to also affect others. Also, when one part of us comes into coherence, like the heart and the mind, it begins to affect other parts of our body. It spreads through the system, and we're all part of that system. And so as we modulate our own stress, we also start affecting the environment around us and how.
yes. And you brought up a very good point. That metronome example is a very good example because metronomes do not have they're not sentient, but
Right.
they basically respond to to the natural resonance of the universe, right? They're made of the same material, and so each one of them is perturbed, which means that they're all over the place. But eventually, it tends to that center point. It tends to that coherent space, and that's how nature is meant to be. Where our body, sympathetic, parasympathetic. When we have short breaths, if we go back to that slow breathing technique, we are actually in harmony with nature. And metronomes, because they don't have a brain that directs them otherwise, they go back to that synchronized kind of movement, which is the harmonious movement. But because we have free will, that we can actually stop ourselves from being in balance with the universe, and we stop ourselves by creating stress in our body. And so we are like the singled out metronome that that is not in sync with everybody else and not in sync with harmony. And when that happens, you are actually going to create more stress in your body. It'll be amplified. Let me give you an example of a, uh, a situation or a study that was done by the HeartMath folks that really drives home the point about you affecting others. They took 10 groups of 4 people,
Mhm.
And three of those people in each group learned the heart coherence building techniques. And they were taught how to do that in a more advanced stage. So it's a very simple. When I say advanced, I don't mean it's complicated and it takes you years to practice. I've done it. I've shown people in 21 days how to get to that state in my 21-day program.
Mhm.
But when you actually when they actually did that breathing technique, they brought the fourth person in. So you've got three people sitting around a table, and they were given signals by the scientists. Okay, now start doing your coherence breathing technique and get into coherent state. And they had the measuring devices to verify that. So when they told the three of them to do that, all three of them began doing that. The fourth person had no training on this coherence building technique. None of them knew what this experiment was about. That fourth person was just sitting there, and what they were doing was they were measuring how coherent the fourth people became when the other three became coherent. And of
Mhm.
course, it shouldn't surprise you or I or anybody listening here that the fourth person shifted into coherence
Mhm.
just from the energy from the other people. And you can do that. If you want to transform your household, if you want to transform your workspace, you need to start here now first yourself. That's
Right.
important. And when you do that, a lot of people tell me, well, how do I tell this person who's giving me anxiety, how do I teach them heart math, how do I do that? And I say to them, no, it's not about them. I want you to work on it first. And
Right.
then I want them to say to you, what are you doing different? What's going on
Mhm.
here? How do I get in on that? That's
Right.
how.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so let's talk about kind of the benefits of it. I mean, we've already touched on some reducing stress, but it really goes beyond that. I know that Greg Braden uses it, in his personal life and, for himself, I mean, and he teaches it in Joe Dispenza. And they really help people understand how to basically create miracles in their life, really create the life that they want. So yeah, and I know you work with clients on that, and I use it in my own practice. So let's talk about how we can help people with those techniques.
absolutely. One of the things that is very clear, and the universe has a specific language. Your body has a specific language. So let's talk about the first benefit of your own health.
Mhm.
Your body has a language that it speaks. And I call it the secret language of your cells. That's really one of my workshops that I do is secret
Mhm.
language of your cells.
Mhm.
And basically, what it is when you are actually perceiving something, your emotional response to that perception informs each and every cell in your body what to do next. Okay, so let's say, for example, have you ever been in a situation where you're scared of something and somebody else is excited about the same thing? The
Right?
same thing's happening, but do we have two different responses? It's
Mhm.
because how we perceive that outcome. Bruce Lipton brings this beautiful example. And of course, I follow Bruce, I follow Joe Dispenza, I follow Greg Braden and Lee Carroll. Love those guys. Uh, Bruce Lipton brought up this wonderful example. He says there's two children standing in the field, and they see a grass snake in the distance. And one of the child says, "Ah!" runs away, and the other child says, "Oh, cool, a grass snake." My
Right.
dad and I and my mom used to actually talk about these things, and he used to let me hold it.
Mhm.
And so one child has this fond memories of gratitude, and all these amazing emotions and memories come with that child's connection with the parents. The other one's scared, likely because somebody told her or him that snakes are dangerous.
Right.
And so when you see a one thing happening around you, one person responds that way, there are 1,400 different chemical responses in your body that happen. Those
Mhm.
1,400 different chemical responses depend on how you perceive it and your emotions that are resulting from that perception. So one child perceived this as a wonderful thing, beautiful nature, that's gratitude. They're now improving their immune system, they're repairing and rejuvenating. And so your body actually begins to heal and self-repair. The other child is sending stress hormones, which means that there's no repair and rejuvenate going on there because all the energy is sent to the areas which are there to respond to a threat. like running away fast. So
Right.
that is in terms of healing, how it impacts your healing. The second way we talked about is the language of the universe. And
Mhm.
that's where we talk about the law of attraction. And I've shown people this very simple thing, and I'll share that with you right now. When I did one of the workshops I did was called Manifest Your Desires, and I used heart coherence techniques to help them break through the barriers which stopped them from attracting whatever they desired.
Mhm.
And so what I asked them the question first. I said, look, I want you to now focus on your desire. What is it that you want? And they, I gave them about a minute, and they started writing down. And then I said, okay, tell me, how do you feel about what you just wrote down? And one person said, I feel really sad. And I said, why do you feel sad? She says, because I wrote down something I don't have. And then I said, interesting. So, most people, when they actually focus on desires,
Mhm.
they focus on, I don't have this.
Right.
And then they ask this question to us. They say, well, I mean, if I don't have it, conventional wisdom, we know law of attraction says, you know, assume that you have it and you'll draw itself to you. There's a lot more than that to that. Because when you are thinking about what you don't have, you are attracting more of what you don't have. So there's a very simple formula you can use to bust through this. And the simple formula there is now begin to feel what it would be like
Yeah.
if this was with you right now. So begin to sense it, begin to smell things around you as if this was happening. And when you do that, you actually draw. It's the feeling that's a secret language of the universe. It's that
Mhm.
feeling that you have. And remember earlier, now we go back into science. This is why I'm so enamored with this coherence and the heart, is because you go back to the science, and I say that if I've got a bubble that's 3 feet around me, you know, and if in that bubble I'm sending out this feeling of, this is what I have, and I already have it, and I'm immersed in this wonderful desire, and I'm immersed in what it would feel like to be there. And I'm not thinking about this, I don't have it, because I'm immersed in it in my brain. And
Mhm.
remember the example I gave about the two children standing in the field?
Right.
Your body is responding to your feelings. It's actually responding to how you perceive things in that moment. This is the important aspect, is that your body doesn't know the difference whether something is actually happening or you are imagining it. It sends a response. If I tell you right now, uh, close your eyes and look at a wedge of lemon and put it in your mouth, ugh, most of us will go, ah. There
Yeah.
is no wedge of, I know you're reacting now. There's no wedge of lemon in front of us, yet our body responds. And this is the thing, is that you can actually, that is the gap that a lot of people get the aha moment when they say, you know what? This stuff will work because I can imagine the feeling of how it is, and my body is going to actually respond. And when the body responds, there's a magnetic field signature of your emotions on that magnetic field bubble. Now, if you believe, a lot of scientists, and I do believe this, that your magnetic field is not physically limited, it's actually multidimensional, because our DNA is multidimensional. Russian scientists have found this out decades ago, that there's a DNA, there's a multidimensional component, a quantumness to our DNA. If that's the case, which means there's no time or space limitation to the energy field that we emanate, and this is all physics. This is
Mhm.
no woo stuff. This is all physics. And so if you truly experience that, and that is why engineers turn into shamans. It's because they realize, they make that little connection. And now if you make that connection with the wisdom that we've learned about the law of attraction, which has been there not only through, the book The Secret. We know all about that book, but that wisdom has been there since the time of the Essenes, before the birth of Christ. That wisdom has been there in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Greg Braden will tell you all about that. So it's ancient wisdom, but all we do is the feelings, and we can actually feel better before we feel better. So that is the kind of gap that we need to traverse as human beings to attract our desires. And try it. It works.
Absolutely. And before we were going to try it, but before we do, I have to tell you. So I use hypnosis as part of my techniques. I'm a hypnotherapist, and um, that is exactly what we tell to the clients. The reason hypnosis works is precisely because your body doesn't know what's real and what's not. And so if you're willing to suspend your belief and you're willing to go to that place where you pretend almost that, you know, you are in a place that you want to create, or you have things that you want to create and have, then your body starts listening to that. So it's the same idea, and it's it's very powerful.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a different expression of an ancient wisdom, hypnosis. It's a beautiful.
Right.
I've had it done. I have a friend who does that. You know, it's an expression of the ancient wisdom, and a beautiful story. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a perfect time to do another experience. How
All
about
right.
that?
So remember, and this is why we said we would wait for this discussion before we do this, because what I want people to do now is to actually bring forward an emotion that they want to experience in their hearts, and these are regenerative emotions. You know, when we actually breathe in compassion, appreciation, and gratitude, there's always something to be grateful about, and the more powerful this emotion that you feel, not think, but
Hmm.
feel, the more powerful your energy field, your magnetic field, and what's registering on your magnetic field will be. So you breathe it. I'll take you through the experience, but I want everybody to actually imagine and bring forward an experience that gives you that amazing elation, the feeling of elation. So when I get to that step, everybody will do that. All right? Shall we do this?
Sure.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
All right.
Excited.
So let's place our awareness in the area of our heart and take slow, deep breaths. And visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. And just take a few breaths like this. Breathe a little slower and deeper than normal. Be gentle with yourself. If you can't breathe as deep, just breathe as deeply as you can. Just make sure your shoulders are not moving up and down when you breathe. You're not forcing this. This is a gentle dance with the universe. Think of the metronome and visualize yourself synchronizing with all the harmonious energies of the universe. Slow, deep breaths, and experience these breaths flowing in and out of your heart. And now I invite you to bring in a feeling that gives you that elated feeling, that a feeling of compassion, gratitude. Put a smile on your face, just like Natalie, you are. Beautiful smile will inform the body that all is well, and you will get this gentle dance with the universal harmony. You will begin to dance with the universe, these symmetrical waves that are coming in and out of your body, and experience these positive emotions. And just take those in and experience those. Beautiful, beautiful. Continue to experience this amazing feeling. Allow your body to just be bathed and nourished with this feeling of gratitude. Every cell in your body, every cell, you have 100 trillion cells. Every cell in your body is breathing this in, this feeling of love and compassion. And don't worry if there are thoughts coming to your mind. It doesn't matter. This is not about blocking away thoughts. When you block away thoughts, you're giving it attention. Whatever thoughts are coming, allow them to come through you. Allow them to pass. Do not judge the thoughts. Just say, pass on. It's just an observation. You're in an observer mode. You're just watching your body, this beautiful body of yours, take action to alleviate stress and anxiety, to boost your immune system, and to actually enhance your intuition. And there's science behind that. There are studies done about this. So when you actually experience these positive feelings right now, as you're taking these slow, deep, gentle breaths, you're actually becoming more intuitive. You're actually connecting with that harmonious force in the universe, and you're becoming one with the universe. You feel the waves coming in and out of your body. That's a resonance that allows you to connect with universal forces in harmony. Beautiful. Now you'll be breathing through your nose or your mouth. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you visualize it flowing in and out of your heart. And do this for 15 minutes a day, and you will see a difference in your life. I've seen it happen within 7 days. I've seen miracles happen within 14 days. And 21 days, my God, you're well on your way. It's almost like you are, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube once you've done this. You can't unring the bell. And that's the beauty of this technique. It's so simple. And an advanced form of this technique was used by the police officer to get back into that state of coherence and arrest the stress response. Just this technique and a bit more on moving in that direction. But this is a good start.
Thank you. I can definitely feel the waves.
Yes.
Very calming and very peaceful. Thank you.
And here's the quantum. Sorry, Natalie, but here's an important thing that we're recording this right now on this day, but we know that there's a potential of people watching this at a later time, because we believe in the quantum field. We know that because it's been proven that all of those people are with us right now in this very moment. And when they're listening to this, when they're connecting with this, that's why you and I feel the powerful energies, because they are all present with us right here today and right now in this moment, in this state beyond the veil. So I can feel a lot of energy right now. I know you can too, and I'm sensing that there's going to be a lot of people who are connecting here, and I'm just in honor and thank every one of them for sharing their energy with us today, because it is benefiting both of us as they're tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think it's miraculous. I think we are such miraculous beings and can create such things that are. It's exciting. It's wonderful.
Yes, it's wonderful.
So, Shamir, as we're coming to the end of our conversation, I want to ask you a question that I ask everybody. What excites you about the power? What excites you about human beings as we go through this transformation, as we become these new humans, about our potential, about in terms of this coherence of heart and mind? What are we capable of? What are we heading to? Because I want people to get excited about, and as I said, I find it miraculous. I think we're capable of miracles. So what's your view on that?
What I find exciting is the wonderment of adults, with a childlike wonderment when they actually realize that getting into that state of coherence allows them to break through many barriers and walls. You know, I've had so many examples. I've been blessed with people coming into my life, and I've seen people just with just connection of the heart and the mind to actually go from very scared to they're very scared and fearful of engaging others. They're very beautiful holistic practitioners. They're energy workers, but this particular one that I'm thinking of is in Germany, and I'm working with her. When I said to her, you need to go and get your vision out there, use the webinars, use the Facebook Live platform. She says, absolutely not. I can't do that live. I can't do that. I can't do that. And then, she's a regular participant in my program. And so one day I saw an email come out from her saying, I now have a webinar and I'm doing this. And I looked at that and says, oh, that's brilliant. I had another client of mine. He's in the oil and gas, so a male, with that left brain thing going on, logical mind going on. And he was telling me when I first started working with him, he says, my competitors are more stronger than I am. And I said, why do you think that? And he says, well, because my business partner tells me that I'm not very aggressive. Isn't that a theme? We talked about this. We're not very aggressive. We're not very in your face and trying to get all these contracts from oil and gas companies. So I said to him, we can't be aggressive. What we need to do is, be a little bit more balanced. So he was so down on himself that when I took him through this 15-minute exercise of connecting his heart and his mind, and I asked him to list his talents, I just said, list your talents now from the space of heart. He started just writing these things down. All of a sudden, this epiphany came over him saying, I am actually very good at what I do. He starts calling
Mhm.
himself the subject matter expert. He was afraid to do that, but now he does that. And just 2 weeks ago, he told me that he secured a contract that has a potential of $1 million of revenue for him. He's already got $100,000 in the bag. He's working with them, but there's a revenue. And this is not something that I did. I mean, I helped him with business side of coaching and showed him how to put the messages together. But what excites me about human beings is that when they actually see their own magnificence, and when you see that light bulb turn on, I want to be there for that light bulb to turn on, because once that happens, you know, I, I have to do nothing. It makes my job so much easier. I have to actually pull them back. And then this person and another person, this person in Germany and another person in Australia, I actually have to rein them in, because once they're connected, when that inner child comes out and says, I'm meant to do this, and just like it did with me, I'm not meant to be an engineer in this way. I'm meant to be an engineer in the way I'm doing it now. That's where my inner engine comes in. That's what makes me passionate and thrive. And to see people just in that moment of switching over, and for me to witness that is the biggest honor I can have. So that's what excites me about when people turn that switch on. It just gives me that ooh.
Yeah, I know. I can relate. Yes. So I want to actually invite people to, we have a Facebook group set up, and I think that people would have a lot to share, as a result of our conversation, and a lot of thoughts about how they're dealing with this connection, or probably coming from the imbalance into balance. I want to invite them to share their stories and their thoughts. And as we
Absolutely.
close, I want to ask you, what are you up to these days? Do you want to bring anything to our viewers' attention? Do you want to talk about your the free gift that you offer our viewers? Anything that you want to mention?
Sure. You know what? What I do now is I do a Monday morning coaching program where everybody practices. I do a group practice on heart coherence building technique, and we have one topic that we talk about each week. So every week I do that, and if you're you get replays. So what I could do is I'm happy to offer your viewers a free subscription for 30 days for that program. It doesn't cost much after that, but it's like $47 a year for joining me
Right,
every week and doing that. But
right.
I'd like to offer them to sample it. If they connect with me, then they can opt in to the subscription. So it's a 30-day free subscription to that, where they can get the replays, they can get past replays, they can get replays and going forward.
Thank you. Wonderful. Well, I
Mm,
think our timing is perfect, because the internet connection is starting to kind of break up, because we have a storm coming here. So I think the divine, timing is wonderful. Shamir,
perfect.
so thank you so very much. You're wonderful. I love seeing that there are men on the planet that are that find power in connecting to their hearts. You're just a pioneer and an example to us. Also, thank you for being here and doing your work.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for
much,
your
Natalie, for
advice.
giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Sure. Bye.